All right, hey guys, Sam back with you here on Tuesday, September 25th. Again, just to make the point here, because we have a Tuesday where we alternate, and that's what we alternate between traditional and crypto assets here. So by request, we poll the members, let them choose what gets analysis, and they had asked for a look at the Aussie dollar, and I understand why. It's a bit of a tricky count. Now, as I will often encourage you to consider when you're looking at foreign exchange, you want to really look at the longer term trends, right? So daily, I like to go to the 3-day, which is what I have here. I have the 3-day of the Aussie to the dollar. We're going all the way back to 2002, but we get enough to work with here. So in this format here, we can see regardless of whether we count this as an ABC, I'm not necessarily trying to connect everything together here, although I have shown this before here. We had this very deep retracement here and ultimately got to an algo target here. I don't know if they were buying there or not. Maybe it was here. But if we work off of this low, we can see we do get this finishing 5 here. So we get a clean Elliott impulse into our top here, which is, what is that, 2011. All right, so working our way down here, I got to open this up a little bit. Now, this is tricky and probably open to multiple counts in terms of how two Elliottians might look at it here. So I break it down as best that I can here, and I certainly do see a good opportunity here for new lows yet to come, at least lows off of this. So given that 5, right? So we're looking for an ABC. Now we've had, what was that, 11, was 7-year correction, right? So these are very, very, very long trends, right? I understand, right? So you go, fuck, man, 7 years. Why do I care about this? Well, it'll impact where the next opportunity is relative to how this resolves. So given that clean 5 that we can't miss, right? We can see this nice clean impulse gives us our top down here. Well, then we get a nice little 3-wave A, 3-wave B. Well, now it gets a little tricky. So from that, if that's our B, we're looking for 5 to complete. Here would be a proposed C wave down here, but that's a, what's this pivot here, 12? That's a 6-year C wave. It's possible, right? It's hard to count it any other way, right? Unless we have some sort of there's a couple of different ways you might have. You could, there might be a WXY or more complexity into this, but I think that always when in doubt, simplify. So I got 3 here. I got 3 here. Well, I'm trying to get a completed 5, but I keep getting extensions from it. So if we allow for this as the B after this very clear ABC, right, we come down, there's the 1, I'm wicking that off. So this would be the proposed 1. It looks like we go into where the high is, whether it's here or here. But this would be a reasonable candidate for our 2 up here, and I would use the absolute highest high here, right? So if I get it right on there, that would be our highest high before we make the move down here to what I propose is the 3. So looking at that, if this is as our B wave high, get that right on there, and then they come down to my low here. So right where you'd expect it. Anywhere from the 50 to 786, we're looking for a 2 wave. Yeah, we get a few ticks through the 786, but that's the 2. The 2 or the B is always the push to get to new highs. They can't do it. So this is trying to get to new highs here, rolls over. This trying to get new highs here, rolls over. That's what creates those, and then why they tend to be deeper retracements. So 1, 2, well, if we go 2 and through, algo target ultimately gets second target before we get a big retracement. So this one is hit. All right, so let's think about that. Well, if that's 1, 2, well, 3, this we here, if we're as I note here by wicking off the 1, if this is our 4, we have a leading diagonal. Right, so this more likely that's ABC. We get an ABC into our 4, and some sort of ABC brings us down. We look for a relationship here between the 2 to the length of the 3rd, right? It's right to the 50, right where you'd expect it. And we get all the way to 3rd target here. So it's technical, right? So then this plays as a 1, 2, 3. Yes, we overlap the 4. We finish in 5. That gives me a 1 wave on the larger degree coming off of this pivot. So A, B, that's the 1 wave. Right, so now if it had finished here and we'd gone straight up and put in a new highs, well, wouldn't that be a nice tidy ABC? Right? It looks like that's going to be close to a 50. So even just out of curiosity, if I look here, All right, so that would have been a real contender. Right? And so somebody, there's probably some money made there on this, on the idea that this was a front run on the 50, that we had an A, B, and that the C was going to come in right here, and we were going to go off to new highs. Well, that's not what we get. So we have to recount it. So what does that leave? Well, if this is going to complete as a 5-wave sequence, and now as we go to new lows, well, there's only so many ways we can count it. Right? So I propose that what we get here is a completed leading diagonal into a 1-wave. There's my 2. Now, it's shallow for a 2 because if this is the start of it here, this B wave high, and we're going, and this is my 1-wave, well, we just barely make the 38. Right? And I've shown you that enough times to where while it's lower percentage, it certainly does happen, right? So 10 to 12% of wave 2s are only that shallow, yet here, note we go right into the lips of the Vegas wave, just textbook, perfect, and then we roll over. So if that's the 2, well, the 3, we don't quite make our third target here, but we get a little reaction at first, a little reaction at second. So we want to look at that in terms of its Elliott wave relationship and think, okay, well, if that's my 1, and that's my 2 here, well, I've at least got to be past 100% of the length of the 1 because I've got a pretty long 1 wave here. Well, I qualify here. I don't quite make the 1272, but I'm longer than the 1 wave. All right, so that has a good candidate here for a 1, 2, 3. Well, now it's gotten a little tricky. So again, I'm still here on a 3-day. So I'm gonna, let's see if I go to a 1-day, can we still get this to fit? Yeah, I think we can. Okay, so let's compress a little bit. All right, so here's the proposed, let me get this back so we can get a handle on it. Okay, so here's the proposed 1 wave is done. 2 wave is in, big 3. Here we come down here for our 3. Let's bring this up just a hair. Okay, so we get a 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we get a 3. Looks like we get a, so we'd have to count it this way. So we'd go from here, looks like that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got some sort of an extra kicker on this 5th down here. So it looks like we get that. So we get this complexity here. So it looks like, so from within that. So actually, here's how I would do it. So remember, now we're just on a daily. So I would go to micro there. Let's put that in green. And then you can see it coming down here. So from here, we get 1, 2, 3. Does that get a new high? Yeah, so there we go. And then we come down for the 5. Let me put that in white. Let's go down a degree, put the whole thing together. I promise you this is helpful if you do this so you don't lose track, even though it's kind of a pain for me trying to just get this all lined up here for you, but I want you to have a template to work from. Okay, so from our 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can see the subdivision here. We finish with a diagonal. Looks like we end with an ending diagonal in the 5th of the 3rd of the 5th. All right, so that would give us our 1, 2, 3. Well, here now we've had some complexity. So first thing we're going to do, just standard operating. If this is a 2 and this is completed as a 3, first thing we're going to do is look for that retracement. So just grabbing from that pivot here. So here's my wave 2 down to my wave 3 low. Right? So what have we done? Well, we've come up and put in a double top right at the 50, right? So, and then had a pretty good reaction from it. So I lean into that more as my wave 4 here relative to this 2. Excuse me, guys. Well, can we get the subdivision here to play into this as a 4? Well, I get a big push here, and then I get an ABC into a B wave here, and then it looks like I finish with a diagonal into that double top. So 1, 2, 3, deep 4, right? We're always looking for, if we're looking at a diagonal, we're looking for a relationship between the start of the 1 and the pivot of the 3rd. So if I just draw that up and say, hey, does that look like a technical diagonal? Well, what do we do here? Nope, here we come right into the golden zone. Boom, up we go. We don't make target, right? It runs, so what does it run into? It runs into that 50 a second time, can't get through, and then look at the rollover. So we have a good contender here. So the fact that we double top, that actually is more common in a diagonal, so that we get this double top here right into the 50. So we've tested twice and then both times pushed over. So I lean into that as a good ABC to finish. So here's your 3-wave ABC. Here's the A, the B, and the C, right? And now we're going down. Looks like we're going down for that target. So that would give us the A, B, C, all of the subdivision. Now note, I'm still on a daily chart. That's why I want to encourage you guys to don't trade Forex without checking the daily, and I would encourage you to take your trades off of the daily if you can. Now, sure, you're going to have to go down to some of the smaller time frames to dig out a count and make sure it's technical, but in terms of what you're targeting and entry, I would strongly encourage you to consider using the daily. So 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Right now, I have much more complexity in the 4 than I do in the 2. So, rule of alternation, maybe we can lean into that. So let me take that off. So if this is going to be my wave 4 here at this 50, well, we know where our target is. Well, we can kind of line that up and say, well, would that make sense with common fib relationships where we might be looking for a relationship between those prior waves? So I'm going to start here at my B wave high. I'm going to take the length of my 1 wave. All right, I'm going to project it from my proposed 4 wave here. Get that right on it. There we go. Okay, so we've got a couple of candidates. So one common would be here the 618. That would give us a potential double bottom. So we'd be left hanging, right? We wouldn't get target. So this certainly a contender. If we finish here and we come down, we finish in 5, get a reaction. It's not uncommon to see the 618, the length of the 1 projected from the 4. If we're going to go deeper than that, well, we got a scenario down here. Now, this is a pretty big hot box, right? So we'd be looking for a front run on either one of these. So that's from 62 to 59. So again, because I'm on a daily, that's an enormous target to have down here. So we'd have to look for a little bit more definition as we're coming down here. So if that's 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got this big fat target down here. So I've got the 100% the length of the 1 and my first algo target. Now nothing says we have to stop there because I've got a second one down here, third down here. So I've got lots of downside potential, but I do have this, it's a little tricky here in that the length, the symmetry is not great here. So if we look at it this way, I always find this can be helpful. So if we look at it and just try and identify the actual wave structure this way, and we were to come down here, right? So if we think about that, let's see. I know we can do this here. I think I can. Let's try this. You're gonna let me do it? I guess it's not gonna let me do it. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So just the symmetry of it, you can see the shallowness and the duration of time in the 2 doesn't fit as well. So it would have been ideal right here. We have better symmetry right there, right? Even into this double top here would have been better to get us down here. But how else do we count this, right? So that makes me a little bit uneasy. I don't prefer that. So then I come back to and go, well, what is that? Is that closer to? Is there another way that I could count this? Well, if it's correcting, if indeed, I can't ignore this, and this big 3 is certainly can't be ignored. So could it be 1, 2? Well, that doesn't make sense because I just finished a 5 wave here. So this has to be an A wave of some sort, given that we're allowing for this to be just a giant correction off of this low. Well, let's think about where we'd be going. Right, so note here. Right? So we'd be going this should be a full round trip. Let me put that back into. So if I do it this way and just kind of grab off this area down here, well, look what we're lining up with, right? And I'm just taking do I have the absolute low? There it is. So our absolute low here to this little wave 2 here. So we get this little box. Right, now note how that lines up with the other box. So I've got a fairly good target. So this would be a complete round trip, right? From our 2008 lows to our 2011 highs down to potentially a 2019 low. Just a full round trip, right? Pretty remarkable, right? But that's what you experience in foreign exchange, which is why I really want to encourage you guys to look here, because you get these incredibly long trends, right? And all you're trying to do along the way here is catch one of these pivots and then just hope you don't get threatened again. All right, so here you can see how tricky this was. You had just this big wall up here. Right, so it would have been easy if you had entered there off of maybe a retracement. You're looking for the 2. Well, you would have taken some heat there. It would have been very tempting to move that stop just to break even. It would have been very close, but it looks like you would have escaped without getting stopped out there. Right, if you had this move down, then they come back, test it. Those are tricky. You got to give those a little bit of room because there are stop hunters in Forex. So 1, 2 looks like it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, complexity. But that's a pretty solid target down here. So before we close out here, let's just break down into the, let me go to, I'll go to a 3 hour. On this last wave down, see if this looks like we can make some sense out of this in terms of a potential ending solution here. So it looks to me like I can go 1, 2, let's just stand it up. Same thing every time. So it looks like I can get 1, 2, that looks like an ABC, looks like that's 4, 5 down here. All right, so let's think about that. Well, so let's first do some checking because that's just off first glance. All right, so here's right to the 50, 2 and through, we get second target. Like I told you, these things, when they trend, they really go. So could that be the 3? Well, let's check a few things. So we have a, well, here's an alternate, right, that actually may well, let's think about that. So if this is going to be 1, 2, we'd have to go 3, 4, 5. So because we don't overlap here, so yeah, see, a little tricky here. Okay, so if this is 1, 2, so we might have this. So this could be 1, 2. Let's see if it plays, right? So this is the kind of work you got to put into it, guys. So if that's 1, 2, all right, let's think about that. If that's 1, 2, well, this can't be 3. This could be our 3. This is where we get our high probability zone here, 1, 6, 1, 8, 1, 7, 5. But that looks more like I've got my third in there. But so that would. Problem with that is it looks more like an ABC, but if it's a diagonal, so okay, let me try and so I'm thinking and drawing at the same time. So this looks like 1, 2, but then if this is going, if the way I had it first here was something like this. So we had 1, 2, right? Well, then this looks like ABC, right? And this looks like ABC, but we don't get the overlap. So if this was going to be ABC, it doesn't work because we'd be looking for a diagonal, either a 1 or a 5th to finish this, and we don't get it. We don't get it. So even here on the 3 hour, it looks like there's a 1, 2, 3, very deep 4, and that looks technical to me. So look here. Right to the 6, 1, 8. Don't get it here, back, then ultimately they get it here. So if that's 1, 2, so if we come back to this is the 1, technical 2. Right to the 6, 1, 8, right where you'd look for it. Well, this 1, 2 looks again like we're gonna. So let's think about this. So we might have push those off as placeholders. So if this is our second 1, 2, let's pull it over. All right. So this potentially. So we could have this. So if that's 1, 2, we could have. Nope, that doesn't work. So we could have 3, 4, 5 here. So let me put that in a different color. All right, then so potentially if that were the 3, so that's got to go up a degree. So bear with me, guys. Here we'll work through this. Here I like to think that there's some value in seeing me work through it here because this is what you're going to need to do. So we got a couple of possibilities here. If that's 1, so if we go, let's get this back here. So this would be here as our 0. So if that's 1, 2. Then we could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could have a leading diagonal here into our 1. Well, let's check that. So if that's from here, if we've got a diagonal, so we come right to the 50, right? So remember, in a diagonal, we're looking for the start of it to the 3. So, well, this could be counted a couple of different ways. So if this is our 2, and this is going to be our 1, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to overlap into the 5 to give us a diagonal into the 1. There's the 2 right at the 50. 3, yep, you got to go 3, 4, and 5 to give us the third here. So let's think about that. So if that's the 3, so it would be 4 right here. So we'd have to look for that 4 relative to this 2, right? So there's the 3. Okay, so we come right to the point of control as I have it drawn here. The 50 holds it, right? We don't overlap. This is our 1 wave that we're worried about. So we've got our third. We've got this right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into a 3, 4. Well, there's the 5. All right, it's just coming up here at our last algo target, or as our second algo target. So let's think about that, where that would put us. So let me go back to, let's go back to a 12 hour. Okay, so if that's complete, if we have a completed move down here, well, let's think about where we are in the structure. So is there an alternate that I'm not considering? Well, what I see here is that this is just done a 1 wave, 2 wave yet to come, 3, 4, 5. Maybe this all has to slide over. all of this moves over. All right, as we get to this, putting it in time frame. Okay, so let's think about that. If that's 1, well, we're looking for our 2. Anywhere from 50 to 618, that's prime zone. We've seen a lot of 50s here. So anywhere in here sets us up for the 2. All right, well, then we got a pretty extensive 1. Let me get that up a degree here and change the color. Go to blue. We'll go to submenu. Okay, so if that's 1 and we go into a 2, so let's see if it was this way. So if this is 1 and we get an A, B, C into a 2, then we're looking for a big 3, 4, 5 takes us down here. So let's measure that out. See if we can set up a roadmap here that plays. All right, so if that's going to come back here, if this is completed a 1, down the low. All right, so we're looking for it anywhere here in this zone between the 50 and the 618. Prime zone for our 2. We've got, you can see our market profile, or our volume profile here. We've got lots of market acceptance there. Point of control, as I have it, because this is visible range, as I have it, is right in that pocket. So we'd be looking for a 1, 2. So that you've got to go into a hypothetical here because we don't know. That 2 could easily go here, could go, we just don't know. So you play from the highest probability zone. So if that's going to be my 2 going into the 618, right, then we're looking for the 3. So let's think about it. So we'd be doing it this way, 1, 2, right? Got to be at least here for the 3. Here's the high probability zone, would be down here at our target. So if we were going to get the depth of this here, we've got a 3, potentially a 4, if that's the 2, right? So if we end up getting this, so if we get 3 wave down to the target, 3 wave, back down again. We don't know where that ends. Right, could be to and through these targets. No way to know until we have the actual pivots to start measuring from. All right, let's get that in green. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, ABC into the 4. That's what I would propose is our most likely path. So working through all of this, we've just put in a 1 wave here. So even if you think about the alternate and you go, well, maybe I've just got this all wrong. And we look here. Well, yeah, we've come to the 786. So there's probably a way we could look. So this couldn't be anything other than a 1. If we were looking for the bullish alternate and you were trying to play this as 1, 2, well, you're right about as far as you can allow it to go here. Well, you know, in terms of the probability zones, you could have some sort of a diagonal here as a 1. The 2's going in, but you're not going to know until you get past that 65. So first challenge is to break that 50, then you got to get through that 65, then you're in a different ball game. But right now, this looks like the most likely path given everything I just worked you through. So from this pivot, from this double top at the 50, there's no reason to assume that that won't make target, right? So here we don't have algos but working with us. So if we think about it that way, right? So we've laid out that path. There is no algo working with you here. Right, because swing low to swing high, we've already broken the 65. So we don't have an algo. Where are we going to find an algo? We will find an algo when we come back to this 50 that will have this as the target. Right, there's our algo footprint. So swing to the pivot to the first target. What we're looking for is for a third, so it goes to third target, which we know is right on top of the 1618. So this is the play that I would suggest here. Nothing says we must go up here. But if we have this right, and this is our 4, which I think, given what we've just worked through, that's a good candidate. And this is a completed motive wave here, giving us our 1 wave. I think much lower probability that we had 3, 4 truncated 5th and that we finished down here. Much higher probability, because I can dig that 5 out of here, is that's just my 1. Any sort of move up is a retrace into the 2. The next trade is to sell that 50, looking for minimum target, minimum being the first algo target. Ultimately, and as I would remind you, when in these kind of markets, you want to look for those bigger moves. We'd be looking for the 1, 2, the 3 of the 5. All right, so that's where those targets all come in, potentially as the 3 of the 5th. Wait for the 4, then there should be 1 more drive down, and then you've done more than if we go down here, right? Because remember, we drew those right back. Let me go back to here where we drew those full round trip, right? So if we're going all the way back down here, well, it's, again, never a bad idea to wick these off, right? Maybe that's a hell of a round turn from low to high, working our way all the way back down to the back to this low. Wouldn't that be remarkable? First thing we got to do is see if we're going to turn here and get the 2 coming down into the 3. It's not an easy count. There's a lot of complexity to it. We do have this lack of symmetry in the 4 relative to the 2. I just don't see another way to count it that would make sense. I suppose you could go A, B, C, and then all of this was a one wave, but I think that's getting a little crazy here. Because of this 5 here, I think we start from the completion of that 5. That first move down is the A, and this is our B. If that's identified correctly, then we're looking for the 5 to complete, and we just don't have a completed 5 yet. So the next opportunity will be the sell at the 50 for the 2, looking for the 3. That's what I see, guys. All right, I went long on that. I didn't really mean to do that, but it just kind of working that through. It took some extra effort. It was not an easy one. And I wouldn't be a buyer here looking for, I wouldn't be a buyer looking into the 2 because the trend is down. I'd be looking for the sell in the 2 for the 3. All right, guys, we'll call that a wrap today.